Jake Rollins never expected to become the most famous bachelor on Earth, but that's exactly what happened when he was chosen to represent humanity in an arranged marriage to an alien princess, as an unassuming 25-year-old tech support specialist from Cleveland. Jake was as average as they come. But the Intergalactic Council didn't select him for his looks or accomplishments. He was simply in the right place at the right time. Earth had only recently joined the Interplanetary Alliance, a coalition of spacefaring civilizations led by the powerful Zorgans. Despite the Zorgans' fearsome reputation, the Alliance had brought immense benefits to humanity. Advanced technology, cures for diseases, and a newfound sense of unity as Earthlings took their first steps into the galactic community. But membership came with a price. As a show of goodwill and trust, each new species was required to send one of their own to marry a Zorgan noble. The tradition was largely symbolic, but it carried immense diplomatic weight. And this year, it was humanity's turn. Jake was at work when he got the call. A stern-faced woman in a crisp uniform appeared on his holoscreen, informing him that he had been selected for the honor of marrying Princess Spylona, daughter of the Zorgan Emperor. Jake's mind raced as he tried to process the news. Him marrying an alien. It had to be a mistake. But there was no mistake. Within hours, Jake found himself whisked away by a team of government agents and prepped for his journey. There was no time for long goodbyes. Humanity's place in the Alliance depended on him. As he boarded the sleek spacecraft that would take him to the Zorgan homeworld, Jake's heart pounded with a mix of fear and anticipation. What would his alien bride be like? Would she be kind? Beautiful? Could he really go through with this? Jake tried to calm his nerves by reminding himself that this was a diplomatic formality. The marriage would be in name only, a symbolic gesture to cement humanity's bond with the Zorgans. He wouldn't actually have to build a life with this princess. But as the ship hurtled through the inky void of space, carrying him further from everything familiar, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to change in ways he could never predict. He was about to become the human face of the Alliance, the man who would marry an alien princess he'd never met, and he had no idea what lay ahead. As the Zorgan homeworld came into view, a swirling marble of vibrant hues, Jake steeled himself for the unknown. He may have been an average man from Earth, but now he had a role to play in a cosmic drama. With a deep breath, he stepped off the ship and into his new life as humanity's bridegroom. Little did Jake know, as he took his first steps onto alien soil, that his arranged marriage to Princess Spylona would be far more than a symbolic formality. It would be the start of an adventure that would test his courage, challenge his beliefs, and ultimately prove the strength of the human spirit in the face of the unknown. For Jake Rollins, average Earthling, was about to become the most unlikely hero the galaxy had ever seen. Meeting Princess Spylona. As Jake stepped off the spacecraft, he was immediately struck by the alien world around him. The Zorgan homeworld was a riot of color and sound, with towering crystalline structures that seemed to defy gravity and strange, floating creatures that drifted through the air like iridescent jellyfish. The very atmosphere tingled with an unfamiliar energy, making the hair on Jake's arms stand on end. He was greeted by a delegation of Zorgan officials, their angular features and shimmering skin marking them as distinctly non-human. They spoke in clipped, formal tones, welcoming Jake to their world and ushering him towards a waiting hovercraft. As they sped towards the royal palace, Jake tried to take in the alien cityscape whizzing by. The Zorgan capital was a marvel of advanced technology and otherworldly beauty, with soaring spires and pulsing energy fields. But Jake couldn't focus on the sights, his mind consumed with thoughts of the princess he was about to meet. Princess Spylona. He didn't even know what she looked like. The Zorgans were notoriously secretive about their royal family, and no images of the princess had ever been shared with Earth. Jake tried to picture what an alien princess might look like. Would she be humanoid? Would she have tentacles? Would she even be capable of speech? As the hovercraft glided to a stop at the palace gates, Jake's heart raced. This was it, the moment of truth. He was led through a dizzying series of corridors, each more grand and alien than the last. Finally, he was ushered into a vast, open chamber with walls that seemed to be made of living, pulsing energy. And there, in the center of the room, stood Princess Silona. Jake's breath caught in his throat. The princess was not what he expected. She was roughly humanoid, with 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head. But that was where the similarities ended. Her skin was a mottled green-gray, with irregular patches that looked almost like rock. Her eyes were large and deeply set, glowing a vivid orange, and her face was a twisted mass of jagged protrusions and sunken hollows, like a craggy clifftop eroded by millennia of wind and rain. Jake couldn't help it. He stared. He had tried to prepare himself for an alien appearance, but this was beyond anything he had imagined. The princess looked less like a potential bride and more like a creature from a horror movie. But as he looked closer, Jake noticed something else, a glimmer of intelligence in those glowing orange eyes, a sense of profound depth and wisdom. And when Princess Silona spoke, her voice was surprisingly gentle, almost musical. "Welcome, Jake Rollins of Earth," she said, her voice resonating in the cavernous chamber. "I am honored to meet you." Jake swallowed hard, trying to find his voice. The honor is mine, Princess," he managed, bowing his head in what he hoped was a respectful gesture. Princess Silona stepped closer, and Jake couldn't help but flinch slightly. Up close, her appearance was even more startling, her craggy features seeming to shift and morph in the pulsing light. "I know my appearance must be unsettling to you," she said softly. "Among my people, I am considered quite ugly, a genetic anomaly." She said this matter-of-factly, without a trace of self-pity. Jake felt a sudden rush of shame for his reaction. Here he was, judging this being based on her appearance, when she was offering him nothing but kindness. "I'm sorry," he said sincerely. "I didn't mean to stare. This is all just so new to me." Princess Silona nodded, her rocky face shifting into what might have been a smile. "I understand. This must be overwhelming for you. But I hope that in time, you will come to see beyond my exterior. At my core, I am not so different from you." As she spoke, Jake felt a strange sensation wash over him, a sense of connection, of understanding. It was as if he could feel the princess's essence, her fundamental being, and it was a thing of beauty, regardless of her physical form. In that moment, Jake realized that his journey was not going to be as simple as he'd thought. This arranged marriage, this diplomatic formality, was going to challenge him in ways he'd never been challenged before. He would have to learn to see beyond the surface, to find common ground with a being utterly alien to him. But looking into Princess Silona's wise, glowing eyes, Jake felt a flicker of something else too. Excitement, hope, and perhaps even the first stirrings of a connection that could transcend the barriers of species and space. His adventure was just beginning, and he suddenly couldn't wait to see where it would lead. The bonding ceremony. The day of the bonding ceremony arrived with much fanfare on the Zorgan homeworld. The capital city was decked out in shimmering banners and pulsing lights, and the air buzzed with anticipation. For the Zorgans, this was more than just a wedding. It was a historic event, the first bonding of a Zorgan princess to a human. Jake, dressed in an elaborate robe that had been provided for him, stood nervously at the altar. The great hall of the palace had been transformed into a dazzling spectacle, with hovering light sculptures and swirling energy fields. It was beautiful in an utterly alien way. Princess Silona entered the hall, and a hush fell over the gathered crowd. She was resplendent in a shimmering gown that seemed to shift color with every movement, her craggy face adorned with glittering jewels. Jake found himself staring again, but this time it was with a sense of awe, rather than shock. The ceremony began with a series of complex rituals, each one imbued with deep symbolic meaning for the Zorgans. Jake didn't understand the words being spoken or the gestures being made, but he could feel the weight of their significance. Then came the moment of the bonding. A Zorgan priest approached Jake and Silona, holding a glowing orb. The priest spoke in a deep, resonant voice, and the orb began to pulse with energy. Jake felt a sudden rush of fear. He had been told about the psychic bonding, but he hadn't really understood what it would entail. The idea of his mind merging with an alien consciousness was terrifying. But as the priest placed the orb in their joined hands, Jake felt a sudden wave of calm wash over him. It was emanating from Silona, he realized, a soothing, reassuring energy that seemed to say, "Trust me." And then the bond took hold. Jake gasped as his mind was flooded with sensations and images, a torrent of alien thoughts and emotions. He saw flashes of Silona's life, her childhood in the royal palace, her isolation due to her appearance, her deep love for her people. He felt her profound compassion, her fierce intelligence, her unwavering strength in the face of adversity. But it wasn't just a one-way flood. Jake could feel Silona in his mind too, exploring his memories, his feelings, his very essence. It was the most intimate experience he had ever had, a connection deeper than he had ever thought possible. As the bond deepened, Jake began to feel physical changes too. His senses seemed to sharpen, the colors around him becoming more vivid, the sounds more clear. He felt a tingling in his muscles, a sense of strength and power that he had never known before. He realized, with a start, that he was experiencing the effects of Silona's unique biology. Her genetic mutation, the source of her appearance, was also the source of extraordinary abilities that were now flowing into him through their bond. When the ceremony ended and the bond was complete, Jake and Silona stood hand in hand, their minds still intertwined. They looked at each other with new eyes, seeing not just the surface but the depths of each other's beings. For Jake, it was a moment of profound transformation. He was no longer just a human, no longer just an average man from Earth. He was part of something greater, a living bridge between two worlds. As the cheers of the crowd washed over them, Jake and Silona stepped forward into their new life together. They were bonded now, not just by diplomacy, but by a deep, unbreakable connection of the soul. And as they walked out into the alien world, Jake knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, human and Zorgan, husband and wife, partners in a cosmic adventure that was just beginning. Little did they know, as they basked in the glow of their union, that forces were already moving against them, dark forces that threatened not just their bond, but the very alliance between their worlds. For in the shadows of the Zorgan court, a conspiracy was brewing, one that would test Jake and Silona's bond, and the strength of the human spirit, like never before. Conspiracy uncovered. The first days of Jake and Silona's marriage were a whirlwind of activity. There were diplomatic meetings to attend, cultural ceremonies to participate in, and a whole new world for Jake to navigate. Throughout it all, Silona was his constant guide and support, her presence in his mind a steady source of comfort. But amidst the bustle of their new life, Jake couldn't shake a sense of unease. There was something going on beneath the surface of the Zorgan court, a tension that he could feel but not quite understand. It all came to a head one night when an explosion rocked the royal palace. Jake and Silona were in their quarters when the blast hit, shaking the very foundations of the building. Instantly, Jake was on his feet, his newly enhanced senses on high alert. "What was that?" he demanded, his voice tight with fear. Silona's face was grim. "An attack," she said simply. "We must get to safety." But as they raced through the palace corridors, it became clear that this was no ordinary attack. The guards who were supposed to be protecting them were nowhere to be seen, and the few servants they encountered scurried away in fear. And then, as they turned a corner, they found themselves face to face with a group of armed Zorgans, their weapons trained directly on the princess. Jake didn't hesitate. With a speed and strength he had never possessed before his bonding with Silona, he leaped in front of her, shielding her with his body. "Stand down," he shouted, his voice ringing with an authority he didn't know he had. To his surprise, the Zorgans hesitated. They seemed confused, unsure of how to proceed. Jake realized that they hadn't expected him to be a threat. To them, he was just a human, a weak and inferior being. But Xyloma stepped forward, her eyes glowing with an intense light. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded. "Who dares attack the princess in her own palace?" The Zorgans lowered their weapons, looking suddenly uncertain. "Forgive us, princess," one of them said. "We were told that you were in danger, that the human was a threat to your safety." Xyloma's eyes narrowed. Told by whom? The Zorgans exchanged nervous glances. Lord Zorax, one of them finally admitted. He said that the human was a spy, that he was here to sabotage the alliance. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Lord Zorax was one of the most powerful nobles in the Zorgan court, a close advisor to the Emperor. If he was behind this attack, Xyloma's face hardened. "Lord Zorax will answer for this treachery," she said coldly. "Jake is my bonded mate, chosen by the Emperor himself. An attack on him is an attack on the crown." With a wave of her hand, Xyloma summoned a squad of loyal guards who had come running at the sound of the explosion. "Escort us to the Emperor," she commanded. "We have a traitor to confront." As they marched through the palace, Jake's mind raced. He had known that not everyone in the Zorgan court was happy about the alliance with Earth, but he had never imagined that the opposition would go this far. An assassination attempt on the princess, on his wife, was an act of war. But as they burst into the Emperor's chambers, they found themselves facing not just Lord Zorax, but a whole group of Zorgan nobles, all armed and ready for a fight. "What is this?" the Emperor demanded, rising from his throne. "Xyloma, what is happening?" "Treason, father," Xyloma said, her voice ringing out clear and strong. "Lord Zorax and his co-conspirators have attacked me and my bonded mate in an attempt to sabotage the alliance with Earth." The room erupted into chaos, with shouts of anger and denial from the assembled nobles. But Lord Zorax stepped forward, his face a mask of disdain. "The princess is mistaken, Your Majesty," he said smoothly. "We were merely trying to protect her from this human interloper. He has bewitched her with his alien ways, turned her against her own people." Jake felt a surge of anger. "That's a lie," he shouted. But before he could say more, Xyloma raised her hand. "My bond with Jake has opened my eyes to many things," she said calmly, "including the prejudice and corruption that has taken root in our court. These nobles do not seek to protect me or our people. They seek only to protect their own power and privilege." Jake could feel the truth of her words resounding through their bond. Xyloma had seen into the hearts of these nobles, had felt their greed and their hatred. And he knew, with a sudden certainty, that she was right. The Emperor's face was grave. "These are serious accusations," he said. "We must have proof." Xyloma nodded. "We will find it," she promised. And with that, she and Jake set out to uncover the truth behind the conspiracy, determined to protect not just their bond, but the future of both their worlds. Confrontation and revelation. Jake and Xyloma worked tirelessly over the next few days, gathering evidence of Lord Zorax's treachery. They pored over financial records, intercepted secret communications, and pieced together a picture of a vast conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of Zorgan society. What they uncovered was shocking. Lord Zorax and his allies hadn't just been planning to sabotage the alliance with Earth. They had been systematically undermining the Emperor's rule for years, siphoning off resources, and consolidating their own power. And at the heart of it all was a deep-seated prejudice against Xyloma herself. The nobles saw her as a freak, a genetic aberration unfit to inherit the throne. They had sought to marginalize her, to keep her isolated and powerless. But Xyloma had never been powerless. As Jake delved deeper into the records, he began to understand the true nature of her mutation. It wasn't just a cosmetic difference. It was a sign of an evolutionary leap forward, a new stage in Zorgan development. Xyloma's unique biology granted her not just enhanced physical abilities, but powerful psychic abilities as well. She could read minds, influence thoughts, even manipulate energy fields. In the hands of the corrupt nobles, these abilities would have been a weapon of oppression. But in Xylona's hands, they were a tool for justice. Armed with their evidence and their newfound understanding, Jake and Xylona confronted Lord Zorax in front of the Emperor and the full court. The confrontation was tense and dramatic. Lord Zorax raged and denied, accusing Xylona of lying and manipulation. But Xylona stood firm, presenting the evidence with a calm and compelling clarity. And then, in a moment that would go down in Zorgan history, she unleashed her full power. The air crackled with energy as Xyloma's eyes glowed brighter than ever before. Lord Zorax and his co-conspirators were lifted off the ground, held suspended by an invisible force. "You have betrayed our people," Xylona declared, her voice echoing through the chamber. "You have sought to undermine the very foundation of our society for your own selfish gain. But your treachery ends here." With a wave of her hand, Xylona sent the traitors crashing to the ground, their weapons clattering uselessly beside them. The Emperor's guards quickly moved in to apprehend them, their faces slack with awe at the display of the princess's power. But Xylona wasn't done. She turned to face the assembled court, her gaze sweeping over the stunned nobles. "For too long, our society has been held back by prejudice and fear," she said. "We have judged each other by our outward appearances rather than the content of our hearts. But look at what the human Jake has accomplished, not despite his differences, but because of them. It is time for us to embrace the diversity within our own people, to recognize that our strength lies in our unity, not our conformity." As she spoke, Jake could feel the power of her words rippling through the room. The nobles, so long set in their ways, began to shift and murmur, their eyes widening with new understanding. And then, one by one, they began to kneel. In a wave of motion, the entire court sank to the ground, bowing before the princess who had shown them the truth of their own potential. Jake felt a surge of pride and love so strong it took his breath away. This was the woman he had bonded with, the woman who had shown him the depths of his own strength. Together, they had faced down a conspiracy, had upended centuries of prejudice and tradition. As Xylona turned to him, her face radiant with triumph, Jake knew that their journey was far from over. There would be new challenges to face, new battles to fight. But with Xylona by his side, he felt ready for anything. They had proven the power of their bond, had shown that human and Zorgan could stand together as equals. And as they stepped forward into the cheering crowd, hand in hand, Jake knew that they were stepping into a new era, an era of unity, of understanding, of endless possibility. The future stretched out before them, bright and unknown. But Jake and Xylona would face it together, partners in life and in love, ready to lead their people into a new age of peace and prosperity. The age of the Earth-Zorgan alliance had truly begun. A new era. In the weeks following the confrontation with Lord Zorax, a new energy swept through the Zorgan Empire. The news of Princess Xylona's triumph, and of the human Jake's role in uncovering the conspiracy, spread like wildfire. Suddenly, the alliance with Earth wasn't just a diplomatic formality. It was a symbol of hope, of the potential for true unity between the species. For Xylona, the changes were especially profound. No longer was she the marginalized, overlooked princess. Now she was hailed as a hero, a visionary leader who had brought the empire back from the brink of self-destruction. The people rallied around her, seeing in her unique abilities a reflection of their own untapped potential. Under Xylona's guidance, the Zorgan society began to transform. The old hierarchies and prejudices started to crumble, replaced by a new ethos of inclusivity and cooperation. Zorgans who had once been shunned for their differences were now celebrated, their unique skills and perspectives recognized as invaluable assets. And at the heart of it all were Jake and Xylona, the unlikeliest of couples, yet the most powerful of partners. Their bond had been forged in the crucible of adversity, tempered by shared struggle and ultimate triumph. Now they stood side by side as the leaders of a new era, the living embodiment of the alliance between their worlds. For Jake, life as the royal consort was a constant adventure. There was so much to learn, so many wonders to discover in this alien world that was now his home. But with Xylona as his guide and partner, he found himself thriving in ways he had never imagined possible. The bond they shared went beyond love, beyond even the deep psychic connection of their initial bonding. They were a team in every sense of the word, their strengths complementing each other, their minds working in perfect sync. Together, they tackled the challenges of leadership, of diplomacy, of building a society that could serve as a model for the entire galaxy. And the galaxy was watching. As word of the Earth-Zorgan Alliance's success spread, other species began to take notice. Delegations arrived from far-flung corners of the universe, eager to learn from this unprecedented partnership. Jake and Xylona found themselves at the center of a growing movement, a network of civilizations committed to peaceful cooperation and mutual understanding. It was a heady responsibility, but one they bore with grace and determination. And whenever the weight of their duties seemed too heavy to bear, they had only to look at each other to find renewed strength. Their love was a constant reminder of what they had achieved, of the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. As the years passed, Jake and Xylona's legend only grew. To the people of Earth, Jake was a hero, a pioneer who had ventured into the unknown and returned with the gift of interstellar friendship. To the Zorgans, Xylona was a savior, a leader who had pulled them back from the brink of destruction and set them on a path to true greatness. But to each other, they were simply Jake and Xylona, two souls who had found an unbreakable connection across the vast expanse of space. Their bond was a testament to the power of love, of understanding, of the unquenchable human spirit that had brought them together against all odds. And as they stood on the balcony of the royal palace, looking out over the gleaming spires of the capital city, Jake and Xylona knew that their greatest adventure was still to come. The future stretched out before them, filled with infinite promise and untold challenges, but they would face it as they had faced everything else. Together, hand in hand, ready to lead their people and their galaxy into a new era of unity and hope. The Earth-Zorgan Alliance had been born in the midst of crisis, forged in the fire of conflict and conspiracy, but it would endure as a beacon of light in a vast and often darkened universe, a shining example of what could be achieved when two worlds, two species, two hearts, found the courage to reach across the stars and embrace the unknown. And at the center of it all, guiding the way forward, were the royal couple who had started it all, the human and the alien, the prince and the princess, the living embodiment of an unbreakable bond that would change the galaxy forever. This was their legacy, and the legacy of all those who would follow in their footsteps, daring to dream of a universe united in peace, in understanding, in love.